Last time we covered who was the strongest of all the horsemen, and to my surprise, you all mostly agreed with me. You can check out that video if you haven't already, the link is in the description down below. As we all wait for any scrap of news related to Darksiders 4's release date, I figured I'd drop some more lore on the channel. Today's video is all about the power of the Four Horsemen. It's not going to be a rehash of the last video, because this time we're covering how their power even works, and why it seems to wax and wane so frequently both in and out of the games. To understand that, we have to first go back to the beginning of their story. Before war, fury, strife, and death were horsemen, they were simply members of a long dead race called Nephilim. At the height of their powers, eons upon eons before the current era, the Nephilim were the scourge of the universe. They weren't just strong, they were apex predators on a cosmic scale. They were basically the Viltrumites, or even Saiyans, of the Darksiders universe. But if we look at their acts, the Nephilim may have been even more cruel. One ancient race who drew their ire, the Ravaim, were hunted to extinction and turned into planet-destroying weapons. The weapons were so powerful because they possessed the entire potential of the fallen Ravaim, which was lost to the cosmos when they were slaughtered. These weapons, the Grand Abominations, were fueled by the pure hatred that the Ravaim harbored for all of creation, thanks to the cruelty inflicted upon them by the Nephilim. The Nephilim wiped out many such races in their campaign of universal conquest, and they were feared across the universe for their power and bloodlust. Neither heaven nor hell, the most prominent and powerful realms in all of creation, could stop them either. The Nephilim were on a whole other level. Thanks to Lilith's ingenuity, the Nephilim were the perfect blend of angel and demon, and possessed abilities and power beyond what either ruling kingdom could have ever dreamed of. They were like a living nightmare. And now the horsemen are all that remains of that fearsome race. So at their base level, each horseman is stronger than nearly every being in all of creation. There are very few who can rival the Nephilim. Sure, there are some exceptional demons, angels, and even old ones. Both heaven and hell have produced some truly exceptional warriors, such as the demon lord Samael, and even Cherubiel, the champion of the cherubim, who both rival the horsemen at the peak of their Nephilim power. There's also Ulthane, a battle-hardened maker with both power and skill enough to completely overpower angelic champions. While there are these exceptions, the horsemen still sit at the apex of power even when they aren't empowered by the Charred Council. At the height of the Nephilim's conquest, many kingdoms such as Heaven, Hell, the makers of the Forged Lands, and even the Charred Council had formed tenuous alliances to stop them. The alliance of the makers and demons couldn't halt the Nephilim's campaign of slaughter. But when the Nephilim decided to annex Eden from the angels, that was the turning point. The Charred Council decided drastic measures needed to be taken, and it was here where the legend of the Four Horsemen truly began. It was here that the Four became more than Nephilim. They became enforcers of the balance, and with that came great and terrible power. The Horsemen had now become the weapons of the Charred Council and came to personify the Council's will. The powers granted by the Council transformed them into cosmic wrath and justice incarnate. They were now the long arm of universal law. I am the law! And with this new power, death, war, fury, and strife went to war with their brethren, though it's instead referred to as a slaughter by a younger Abaddon. They were joined on their campaign by the angelic warriors of heaven, and together this alliance crushed the seemingly unstoppable Nephilim, with death laying the final blow on his eldest brother, the first of his kind and leader of the Nephilim, Absalom. With this, the Nephilim were no more, except for the horsemen. But how did they accomplish this seemingly impossible feat? How did 4 individual Nephilim turn the tide of battle so drastically? And if this power came from the council itself, why did they not bestow it upon their other allies? I think the answer is simple. For the Horsemen and Charred Council, it was an example of perfect timing, or in this case, literally God's timing. The council needed to channel their power through warriors capable of wielding it, and the Horsemen were the most powerful warriors in the universe. And not only that, But the council needed a neutral force, not allied with heaven or hell, and the horsemen provided that perfectly, as they no longer had any allies at all or allegiances. They were perfect. Honestly, they might have been more than perfect, as their powers have seemingly evolved over time. Samael comments as much when he draws out the potential of war and strife. It helps them unlock their chaotic transformations. Perhaps these transformations are what happens when the council's magic enhancements meets the unique combination of each horseman's essence. Or perhaps it's the latent manifestation of each horseman's own power. This is one mystery that I hope is answered in Darksiders 4. Whatever the case, the Four Horsemen, when fully backed by the Charred Council, now possess the power to stop the greatest threat known to the universe. So let's talk about it. Let's rank the different tiers of power in the Darksiders universe. Darksiders has powerhouses in just about every race of being. Those who aren't physical powerhouses tend to be well imbued magically, so it gives the impression that the series is filled to the brim with incredibly powerful beings. Except for humans, of course. So this is my overall ranking list. I put it together in only a few minutes, so it's definitely going to have some gaps, but this is a bird's eye view of what power looks like in Darksiders. So here you go. Take a good look at this list. We're going to be looking at it for a little while. At the start, we have mortals, who are humans for all intents and purposes. We have minions right after that. We have the fodder ranks after that, which includes undead, demons, and angels. We have champions after that. We have the captain class. I'm going to put the chosen here just below demon lords. We got the demon masters after the demon lords. Those are from Darksiders Genesis. The demon masters are probably equal to the sins. Now the sins have been buffed in Darksiders Genesis by the Charred Council. Previously it took the Four Horsemen. The Four Horsemen were able to defeat the sins, but the sins that Fury is facing in 3 have been buffed up a little bit by the Charred Council. After that, we have the elite Nephilim, who we've talked about already here. And we have the empowered horsemen after that, followed by the Charred Council. And at the very tip top is the creators. So let's break that down a bit. Before we do that, you guys have noticed I didn't put any makers on the list. There are some omissions. So I didn't put the makers on the list because as a whole, it's actually difficult to chart the makers because each of them have drastically different levels individually. You have some like Idard who are like incredibly powerful, but then you have the more mundane makers on the side. You also have Ulthane, who is an incredibly powerful warrior, but then you have lesser warriors also amongst the makers. So I didn't put them as a monolith, they're individual, but I do mention Ulthane a few times here. The same goes for other old ones who are a wide range of races, beings. Most of the old ones are going to come from the abyssal creatures or creatures who live in the abyss, which are also a wide range of creatures. There's some who look like demons. There's Tiamat, there's Silitha, there's Straga. There's a lot here to unpack, but they're all different levels of power. So let's start off here. Of all the sentient races in the universe, humanity is the one that sits at the bottom of the totem pole. Every other race is just so much more powerful at a fundamental level than man. And that's because mankind's potential was robbed from them on several occasions through the interference of demons and angels and other ancient beings. Mankind is actually supposed to be one of the 3 main kingdoms, with their rise to power being tied to the end war, the final war to decide the fate of the universe alongside heaven and hell. As is, humans are nearly extinct thanks to some shady scheming from the bad guys. And after the humans comes the minions, lesser demons, and undead, in other words, the fodder that's typically commanded by the power players. Now our warrior class here, they're the next one in line. They're also commanded by the power players, but I separate them because they're typically going to have a greater level of intelligence and force. These are going to be the warrior class of demons, angels, undeads, the foot soldiers of heaven, hell, and the kingdom of the dead. So I'll group all these that I just mentioned, and I'm going to call them the low tier. These are the weakest demons, angels, and creatures from the abyss. All of them are going to be above humans individually, but these beings are not going to be immune to some high-powered man-made weaponry. We've actually seen a human take out a demon in Darksiders 2, the DLC specifically, with a high-powered sniper rifle. So these beings here aren't immune to conventional human weaponry. Maybe like a handgun, maybe the bullets will bounce off of them. But bazookas and high-powered sniper rifles can probably take out most of these beings here. And then after this group, after our low tier, we're gonna have the captains and demons of heaven and hell, along with the bigger, stronger constructs created by the makers, and some of the more powerful creatures from the abyss that the horsemen hunt on their journeys. I'll call these the mid tier. Above this group, we have the champions. Above the champions, we're going to have our Demon Lord class, with beings such as Belial and all the bosses that are in Darksiders Genesis. Though with the caveat that these will be the bosses as they existed without Lucifer's upgrades. Because Lucifer's upgrades, they tended to upgrade the Demon Lords into Demon Masters, which was a higher grade. I would also put the Chosen around this level, but perhaps a little bit lower than the Demon Lord class, because even though they got power from Samael's still technically a Demon Lord. These are his peers at this level, even though he's much higher. He's at the apex. He's in a higher class, but these are the people who would be his rivals in hell. So I'm going to call this the mid-high tier. And above this group, you have the powerhouses of the series. Again, we have Samael, Ulthane, and even a non-enhanced Death. So we're going to get into that. This is the general tier that I put the entire Nephilim race, though a little bit lower than those I just mentioned. Death took the title of strongest Nephilim from Absalom when he ended him, at least according to Samael, who viewed Absalom as the strongest of the Nephilim. That said, Samael and Death stalemated when Death traveled to the past and fought him. So if you guys didn't know, Absalom is an enemy we encounter in Darksiders 2. He is the first Nephilim ever created. So I'm going to call this list this tier, I should say, the high tier. If I were to break this down further, how I would do it is I put Ulthane at the bottom of this tier. I put the Nephilim above Ulthane. I put Strife above the Nephilim as a whole. I put Fury above Strife. I put War above Fury. I put Samael and Death above War. And then probably above everybody here is probably the angelic champion Cerubiel. The cherubim champion Cerubiel. The cherubim champion Cerubiel. The sins from Darksiders 3 and various demon masters from Darksiders Genesis can also slide into this group at various levels, as the sins were empowered by the Charred Council and the demon masters were empowered by Lucifer and various trinkets that were found on Eden. So typically I put the sins and the demon masters most likely below Strife. I don't know, either below the Nephilim, I don't know, probably above Ulthane. So maybe a step above Ulthane, maybe a step below the Nephilim. I'm not sure. That's where these tiers are fun. And now we have the Enforcer tier, where we'll put the Horsemen. This is when they're fully empowered by the Council. There's not much that can stop all four Horsemen together when they're on a Council sanctioned mission. I'd probably put the Destroyer at full power here as well. So I'm going to break that down as well. I'm talking about the Destroyer with all of his Chosen still alive, which means he would still have a connection to the Well of Souls. This version of the Destroyer could likely defeat each Horseman solo, but wouldn't survive long if they all teamed up and fought him together. And if he's cut off from the Well of Souls, then he can't defeat them solo. But still, if we're counting them individually, then Full Power Destroyer is at the top of this tier. And this next one is more of a speculative tier, since we haven't seen any direct feats from either party I'm about to list. But I'm putting the Charred Council and Lucifer in this particular tier. To be honest, it's very possible that the Council may even answer to Lucifer in some way, or may simply be his subordinates. But either way, the story tends to frame Lucifer and the Council as master schemers who possess enough power to simply hand it out to not whoever they wish, but whenever they wish. I guess also whoever they wish. They tend to go with whoever they choose, whoever's most convenient for them at the time. These two groups, these two entities, have no direct combat feats. The Council kind of has one, but it's actually avoided in a way, so we can't particularly tell like how strong they are. So I wouldn't use the combat feat we see from them in Darksiders 3 to be a judge of how powerful they are. But I'll comfortably put these two for now above the rest unless Darksiders 4 changes that notion. And above all, at the highest tier is likely the creator, which I love. They just call God in Darksiders the creator. I do that too in my novel Hell Warriors, capital C and all. But yeah, the creator in Darksiders created everything, even all these dysfunctional and chaotic entities that dominate our tier list. I wonder if we'll see the creator given any tangible form in the story one day, or if they'll just be capital C creator off in the distance. Maybe we'll even get a disembodied voice. Let's see where the series takes us. So one thing I want to cover before we head out of here is how strong each horseman became in their respective games, and if they were granted powers by the council or not. What I've learned while scaling this is that the horsemen have ridiculously terrifying potential and can scale really high based on that alone, starting with Darksiders 1 and War. War started the game at full power, likely even having the Enforcer buff, but then quickly lost most of his power before being killed by the chosen Straga. War is revived by the Charred Council and begins his quest stripped of all power. Even at this level, he can effectively defeat Golan demons and a Phantom General before he even gets his first power up. These are arguably champion tier enemies, and War doesn't seem to break a sweat. I mean, it depends on who's playing the game, but you guys know what I mean. Not long after that, Samael starts bestowing a new power upon War for each chosen he kills. War cuts through captain and champion tier angels and demons until he comes face to face with Tiamat, another of the destroyers chosen, who each now possess a portion of Samael's power. With barely any power increases, War makes quick work of Tiamat. So if we look at it, even at level 1, War can effectively solo a chosen tier abyssal fighter, keeping in mind that the chosen are nearly as strong as a demon lord proper, and are perhaps stronger than some demon lords. This leads me to believe that even at base level, War still possesses most of his innate Nephilim strength, as well as durability and agility. He doesn't seem to have the council buffs or whatever other buffs he gained over his eons of existence, which were likely also erased when he was killed and reborn. But his base Nephilim stats are, well, that's his level 1. His level 1 is still one of the most powerful beings in existence. By the end of the game, and several more power-ups from Samael, War ends up far more stronger than he started, even compared to when he was at full power at the very beginning of the game. Next, we have Death, whose mission to redeem War was completely unsanctioned, and so Death did not have the Council's Enforcer buff for the duration of Darksiders 2. Death was also likely functioning at least a lower level of power than normal due to his injury from the Shattered Amulet of Souls. Death's power increase isn't really shown in the narrative like War's was in Darksiders 1. Instead, Death seems to always operate at the maximum level he needs of efficiency. Death does level up in the gameplay constantly, but it doesn't seem to reflect in the cutscenes. The most I can say is that Samael does comment on Death's journey strengthening him, so there may be something to that level up system. Death, of course, stalemates a fully powered Samael in this game, and one of the best boss fights in the series. And by the end, Death once more defeats Absalom, who had become corruption incarnate with no gimmicks and no council backing. He only had the strength and skill he gained over his lifetime, which is an interesting development because it puts Darksiders 2 Death ahead of his fully powered self when fully backed by the council during the war on the Nephilim. Of course, it could just mean that Corruption Absalom is much weaker than his past self, but with Corruption being a world-killing entity, I only believe Absalom to be much stronger than he had ever been when he was alive. This creates a new angle for us. It seems that a Nephilim's potential, even without the Charred Council's magic backing them, is truly limitless. Fury's example is clear-cut. She was fully backed and sanctioned by the Charred Council. They gave her full power, but they also powered up her targets, the 7 deadly sins, with the desired outcome being mutual destruction of the horsemen and sin alike. Even with the Council's backing, Fury shows clear power progression thanks to the Hollows, ancient elemental magic she gained from the Old One known as the Lord of Hollows. It's also pointed out by the Sin Pride, who initially believes Fury is too weak to challenge her, but soon accepts Fury's challenge once the other remaining sins are defeated, Pride then acknowledges Fury's growth to the point of offering to ally with her to bring order and balance to the world. At the end, Envy takes the amulet, which holds the power of all the sins Fury had captured to that point, 6 in total. It then takes Fury's power as well, that she got from the council. Fury still manages to defeat her thanks to the strength and wisdom she gained on her journey, as well as the powers granted by the Lord of Hollows. She even holds her own against the Charred Council, albeit briefly. Even though Fury lost her Enforcer amp at the end, she still gained more power thanks to her connection to the Lord of Hollows and her own innate Nephilim potential, and even gained a weapon from the Lord of Hollows that may be one of the most powerful in the series. And finally, in Darksiders Genesis, both War and Strife were empowered and sanctioned by the Charred Council and fought at full power throughout the entire game, where they encountered demon lords called demon masters that were much stronger than usual thanks to Lucifer and his ancient magical artifacts. Over the course of their adventure, War and Strife do unlock a large portion of their potential power as chaos and anarchy forms. This is thanks to Samael's guidance and demon magic. And that's all I really have to say on that today. To sum it all up in just a few words, the horsemen are all really f***ing scary, and in Darksiders 4 they could potentially be even more powerful. Anyways, what do you guys think? How strong do you think the Four Horsemen are? And do you think that will change in Darksiders 4? If you all like this and you want to see more Darksiders and Legacy of Kain content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to see more. I also have a Patreon down below as well. Join there to support more content like this. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.